This is the test in question, the demo for Mainframe. These are the tests that are involved in that particular test. And I won't double click it because it's already open, so I'll open this edit process down here. And this is the editor, so I can make changes here at will. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this involves. The narrative is automatically generated for us, and that's by selecting the window, the options, and the actions. Just like a user would any type of application or environment, they need to understand what window they're using, what object, and then the action that they want to perform on that particular object. For instance, if we're using Excel, I want to know what spreadsheet I'm in, which is the window, and then what object, which would be a button. For instance, a row in a table or at a field level, etc. And then the action I would like to perform against that field. So very, very simple stuff. All the interfaces and the methodology that we use to test is all similar. And let's just go ahead and take a look at how we can create this test. We'll execute it, and then we'll show you how we can modify the test and save it so everybody else can use it, and the test can be repeated nightly for different permutations and lights out testing. So let's go ahead and execute the test, and I'll describe exactly what's happening. Of course, it is pretty easy to understand because the narrative is generated automatically, and depending on the window, object, and actions that you select. Let's go ahead and execute it, and we'll talk about it, and then of course we'll come back in and modify that test, execute it again, and that should pretty much cover our demonstration. So first step, go ahead and run it. I can of course run that from the central UI down here, but since I'm in the editor, I can go ahead and run it from here. So we press the button. I believe I did modify that. This is the configuration screen, which gives us some options on how to execute the test itself. I'm not going to go through everything here, but for a few examples, the run settings here, we can obviously stop on failure to troubleshoot, etc. Or we can just let it run and create its report with a failure. And also what's important here is the step delay. I've got a 1 second step delay because for Mainframe, it runs so fast, a lot of times you won't even see the automation because, again, Certify is kind of like your own personal assistant or a robot and executes as fast as that application can run. The other great thing about it is that the logging settings here, as I mentioned early on, we obtain real-time documentation after every execution. So we have a number of settings here where we can just take a snapshot of a captured step or a snapshot on every window change, or we can even take a snapshot of every single step itself. So a lot of flexibility and power there. And then of course I can capture the active window or the desktop itself, but I like the active window because just in case one of the windows is in the foreground, you may not see it. So this way I get to see the whole view of a particular error. So let's go ahead and hit start. And this gives me the execution screen. I can do a variety of things here. I can run the whole test in one shot. I can step through the test. I can skip through steps that I don't want to run. I can also watch variables at the time of execution, which is great because remember, Worksoft Certify does cross-platform testing, and that means we can capture data from any other application and use it in this particular test as well, all in one test. So that's what this is here. Variables, we can watch them real time. So what I'm going to do is just step through the test. And the first step is to load the emulator itself. In this particular case, I have a Rumba AS400. And as you can see, that passed. It loaded the emulator configuration. And that was basically a saved file locally, or it could be on your network, of what system I want it to point to. So basically, when I go into an AS400 screen, I tell it what IP to point to, etc. And boom, save that configuration. And that's what I've loaded here, is load that configuration, and I'm ready to execute against it. So let's go ahead and step again. The first step is input Worksoft in the user field. As you saw, that was pretty quick. I'll step again. Main in the program procedure field, and then in the menu field, you can see this is pretty simple stuff. So I can step that through it again, and then input standard in the library field. press enter, which is a host key, and now we're logged in. Now, the great thing about this is I'm able to select any one of the following menus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 90 to sign off. How do you do that, though, is by positioning it or selecting the appropriate row and column. Now, right now, I'm going to type 2 automatically. You can see that here, and that's going to type 2 here in the selection or command. Anyone that's familiar with mainframe applications knows that it's pretty much ready for a command, so it makes mainframe testing very, very easy. But again, what I want to do is, or mention, is that we can basically select anything on the screen itself. We can extract data from that screen itself, and we can even make sure that we're on the correct screen before going forward. So this is a very simplified test, and I'm going to show you how we can do that shortly after we modify the test. So again, the prompt is ready down here. It's on row 20, I guess field 7, because mainframe is all about positions and coordinates. Go ahead and hit step there. Here's the 2, and then I press the host key. And then I press another number, you'll see here, and then I press the host key. And you'll notice it's repetitive. Enter, host key, enter, host key, enter, host key. Let me go ahead and just run that, finish it. And again, there's a 1-second delay here, so you guys can see this happening. And that's it. My test is completed. And as you can see, everything has passed. Now, of course, in best practices, I would have a log off process here at the end, so I could log off. That's why the screen is still running. But for simplicity, we just wanted to show you this, okay? So the next thing is, how do I modify that test? How do I extract data or position the cursor anywhere else on the screen without any programming? So let's go ahead and close the, oh, before that, let's take a look at the results. As you can see, elapsed time for each execution is it's milliseconds. That's how fast it can really run. Obviously, it doesn't take into consideration my stepping through it, but you'll get a lot of information on performance on your systems automatically with the results. So, and there's a lot of information to be had as well. If I was to just right-click on the Customize Columns, you can obtain all this other data in your documentation as well. So very, very accurate documentation, hence the reason why it complies with SOX, etc. So let's go ahead and close that result. And we'll go back to Worksoft Certify, and I can show you that result is now, remember, in a centralized repository, and this is a real live system. So if I go to the results, you could probably see some other people using the environment, and a lot of people here. This gentleman's from Germany. This one here, he's in Minnesota, and that's in Dallas, etc., etc. So you can always come back in here and open up your results, and you can create reports with this as well. We may not have time for that, but that's just a general overview. The processes. Let's go back to the process. And now, this is what I want to show you. I'm a little bit lazy, so we noticed early on that there's 2 common test steps here. And that is press input or type keys and press the host key. And as you can see down here, the press host key can be anything you would like, right? We have pretty much every single key available for you with these pull down menus. So again, the flexibility, automation without any programming whatsoever. You have all the options here ready at your disposal to select whatever function or action you would like. The other thing was type keys, and let's take a look at that. And again, if I want to modify that type keys, I would just simply do 3 or 4 or whatever I would like, and that changes that automatically. And as you can see, the narrative has changed as well automatically for you. So what I do, since it's repetitive, I take these 2 test steps and I copy, and I just keep pasting it. And that's what you see down here. I just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And then I would just create my test that way because it's always kind of the same thing. It's very repetitious. Now, the other side of the coin is, what if I don't want to type keys? What if I want to place the cursor at a different position or save some particular data on that screen itself? So what I would do, instead of typing the keys, which is the action, I will pull down this type keys action column, and these are all the other actions that are available to me on that particular screen. So here I can verify if the screen contains a particular text, like make sure that the title's there and I'm on the right screen. That's all I would have to do. So it would say search text. It would be, let's say, the home screen. So it would make sure it's on the home screen prior to continuing the test. Let's go back into the next step. And then I could say, hey, locate the cursor relative to a position, right? So I can search the text, say the home field or invoice, let's just say, and then I can position my cursor next to it. And then as another example, I can, let's see here, store the value relative to that cursor, or store the value relative to the actual text. So a lot of functionality here. Everything is out of the box. We've done so many, and we have many customers that have created so many tests just out of the box using all this. We pretty much have all the functionality that's required to do all the testing. But we still have an old school way of screen scraping, which would be learning the actual screen if you would like to. But again, as I mentioned, you really don't need it anymore because of all the out-of-the-box functionality that we do currently have with Worksoft Certify. But if you did want to, you could use the screen scraper and you could connect to the actual instance, whatever instance it may be. It doesn't matter. It works with every, well, let's see here. It works with Rumba, Attachmate, IBM PCOM, IBM Host on Demand, Blue Zone. I think there are a couple of other emulators that were integrated with. And again, the emulator is just simply a view into your mainframe environment. Anybody can use any one of these. You're still going to access the exact same system. It's just your preference. We are compatible with all of these. So let me go back and connect again, and I will learn that screen. And as you can see, it renders everything on that particular screen, and I can save that, bring it into my database, and use the screen however way I would like to regarding testing, storing data, etc. But again, as mentioned, we can just simply use those pull-down menus and do the exact same thing that you would do. So we still kept functionality, but the out-of-the-box function can pretty much test anything you would like in mainframe environments. That's pretty much it with mainframe testing. So if you have any further questions about mainframe testing and every other interface that we're able to test, please contact us and send us your questions at www.worksoft.com. And thank you for joining us.